My name is Yannick Gingras, and today I'm here to talk about a hobby of mine. In my spare time, I organize a community called Montréal-Python. So the first thing that you should know about me is that I'm a person who likes to try new things and to learn from my mistakes. And my first professional experience was to be a car mechanic. And as I was repairing cars, it was getting kind of obvious to me that this was something that I liked, but I didn't like the grease, always smelling like gas and burning myself on the engines. And I decided to try something new. So I went back to college and I learned programming. My first programming job was to design a vending machine. And a vending machine, you can think of this as a very simple device, right? You put $3 in the machine and it gives you $3 worth of peanuts. That's exactly how we want it. We want to provide a really simple user experience. Under the hood, the machine that we were designing was more complicated. It has inventory management. It could page a serviceman on the road and say, oh, I'm getting low on peanuts, I'm getting low on change, or some bill acceptor is not working anymore. So we had our machine. We built it with C++ because this is what we learned in college. And at some point our customer says, hey, but how about having a different kind of user experience so it would be a smoother flow? So we said, no problem, you just sit there, we code it, and we're going to show you what it looks like. So we programmed the thing, we compile it, we deploy on the prototype machine, and 10 minutes later, we kind of lost already the attention of our customer. So it worked, we showed him something, but he wasn't in the loop anymore. And that's when we said, oh, we need a scripting layer. So I went on Amazon.com, I ordered 2 books of 2 good scripting languages. One was programming Perl, the other was programming Python. Programming Python arrived first, and this is how I got started with Python. So, Python, why Python? Python is a dynamic language. It's a dynamic language in the sense that it allows you to do a program without declaring your type. So are you all in computer science? Who here knows about programming? Okay, so you don't do any programming? Okay, I'm going to keep this high level. But yes, it's a dynamic language in the sense that you don't declare your type, so you can really easily express an idea without having to think a lot about what kind of variables you're going to use. It's also a dynamic language in the sense that it's really easy to get started and write a program in Python. You don't need to start a project, to set up an IDE. You just type a few lines of code and you can write. You can run that as a program. In our case, when building this vending machine, a really interesting aspect of Python is that it has really, really good support for C and C++ libraries. So if there is a library that does pretty much what you want in C or in C++, it's very straightforward to use it in Python. There's a shell in Python, so you can code something and you don't need to write a program to try it and see if it does what you want. You can just say write a function and load this function in your shell and play with it, call it with different arguments, see how it behaves, see if it really expresses what you're trying to express. There's a lot of libraries for Python. There's a lot of libraries because essentially all the C and C++ libraries are easily available to us. And also there's a lot of libraries because Python has been here for a long time and people have been working hard to make libraries that we can use to build higher level programs. There's really good introspection in Python. So a Python program can learn a lot about the code that it's executing by using Python. So if you're using a library, a cool new library that you don't really know, you can read the documentation. That's what most people do. But you can also just load it in your shell, load the function, try them with different arguments, see how they behave, see how you could use that library to do something. So you code a little sketch right there in the shell, and if it does something interesting, then you can promote that to become a more sophisticated program. There's an interesting design principle in Python, is that we're all consenting adults. So if you're familiar with languages like C++ or Java, there's a keyword called private. In Python, we have something equivalent, but it's more a form of documentation. It means you should not be touching that. It doesn't mean that you can't. And this is really interesting because you can dive in when you have to, because you're debugging, because you know what you're doing, because you need to meet a deadline and you're working around a bug in the library that you're using, you can do that in Python because they say, yes, if you know what you're doing, we're not going to force you not to do something because a programmer thought that it would be better otherwise. Essentially, in Python, it's cheap to try ideas and to learn from your mistakes. So with this tool, Python, I had a few jobs where it was a key element of my jobs. So after building a vending machine and having some success with that, I became a free software consultant. A free software consultant is somebody who helps companies to use free and open source software, to customize them, to integrate them in their companies. And in that position, I use Python to automate, build systems, to compile systems, to assemble them, to deploy them. I use Python to program an accounting system. Then I got back to university in mathematics. I worked as a research assistant. That took me to the University of Hawaii, where I was able to use Python to train vector engines with machine learning, so they would recognize genome sequences of viruses from sample of water that they took. Python was the key element there to automate this whole machine learning experience. After that, I got back to Montreal. I worked as a system administrator, where we use Python as our main automation tool, as a tool that we would use to automate tasks, repetitive tasks that system administrators often have to use. Rotate logs, examine the system, reboot the server if that happens. I got promoted in that company as the director of consulting and system administration. And this is how I was able to promote Python as the leading tool for system administrators in that company. That would be the language that we would use to develop our toolkit to make us more efficient as system administrators. I worked as the lead developer in a payment processor company, and we would use Python there to develop our contact relationship management system. So basically, the tool that salespeople use to get new customers, and how we use to manage our existing customers and to give them a good service. It was also the tool that we used in our billing system. And think that a payment processor company does a fraction of a cent every time you swipe your credit card. So there's a lot of transactions, a lot of complicated business rules, and Python was our tool there. After that, I started my own company with a few friends of mine here in Montreal. We developed Aja. It's a search engine, if you will, for sources of funding for nonprofits, so grants that nonprofit organizations get access to. There we use Python in our search engine. We have a search engine that go and crawls the government websites, the foundation websites, and indexes the grants. These grants are then accessible to our team of analysts who figure out if the search engine did a good indexing job, and then they write better grant description, they improve the tagging, and then this data is passed to our web interface that nonprofits can use to explore what kind of grants they could be receiving if they're working in environment, in social services, or other things. And then my next challenge is that in 3 weeks, I'm moving to San Francisco. I'm going to be joining Facebook, where I'm going to use Python to help them improve their infrastructure, their deployment system, to make the website run faster. Talking about running faster, I have to accelerate a bit. Time is running fast. So what's this Montreal Python community? 4 years ago, a gentleman called Alash Chupani emailed me and said, hey, we should get together and organize some kind of a community, some place where we could hang around, so many Python programmers, we could get together and talk about best practices, what kind of libraries we use, or just go and have a beer, because it's really fun to have a beer with people whom you share interests with. So that's how we got started. Montreal Python is a group of programmers that does events that are free for everyone. It's not just for expert Python programmers. And our main activities is monthly meetings where we have techno talks. Talks typically more technical than what I'm doing right now, but not so advanced that a newcomer cannot have fun. It's typically a series of 5-minute talks and then longer talks, maybe 20 minutes up to 1 hour. And it's typically people telling how they use Python, what kind of project they do with it, what they like with it. Some people come and talk about their favorite libraries. So that's our main activities. Another thing that we do is code sprints. Code sprints are really fun. It's a bunch of programmers who get together and they decide to select a project and to work on that project to improve it. With code sprints, we work on Django. With code sprints, we improve the Python standard library, and if you're running Python, you can be proud because there's 20 or 30 persons who did contribute code to the Python standard library because of these code sprints. We do workshops. So workshops are events that are more educationally oriented. It's usually longer events where we teach programming or we teach Python to people who don't know much about either Python or programming. One very successful workshop that we've had was a workshop for women. So it was for women only, or for guys if they were invited by a woman. And where is it? So, how do you... Alright. So these are pictures of the attendance. So as you can see, many people came. So this is a room mostly filled with women who were eager to learn programming. So some people say that there's a gender gap, but it's not because there's no interest from women to learn programming. And now, the thing that I'm the most proud of for Montreal-Python is that last March, we went to Atlanta, where was held Python, the largest conference in the Python programming world. And we we submitted a bid to host Python here in Montreal, and we won. We won because Montreal is a great city, but we won because we have a great community to back us up. So in 2014 and 15, right here in Montreal, the superstars of the Python world are going to fly in and share with us the advanced, the new cool things, where the direction where the language is going. What are the benefits of being involved in a community like Montreal-Python? Well, first of all, I don't believe in the concept of a dream job, a job that's going to fulfill all your needs, all your ambitions. I think that there are good jobs that are going to get you somewhere, but that you need something else. You need to do something beside your job if you want to be a person that fully realizes himself. What people gain when they get involved in a non-profit or in a community like Montreal-Python, which is also a non-profit, they can learn to do sales, because sometimes you don't get to do sales as part of your job. So in our community, we have sponsors, and we get people who learn to be good salesmen by calling these people and say, hey, I want you to give me $500 because we're going to do this event. They get to practice what it is to do negotiation in a safe environment that's not going to jeopardize the whole company if they try something new and they make a mistake. We learn to help others. That's really fulfilling. We learn to become better communicators, not to be afraid of doing public speaking. And we get the exposure and the networking to make contacts. So I'm now a member of the Python Software Foundation. I know personally most of the most brilliant Python programmer in the world. If I have a problem, I email them and say, hey, Yannick, yes, I recognize that this is a real problem for you and for other people. I'm going to work on that. And by getting recognition, people involved in the community, people who get to put the posts on the blog and say, we're going to have an event next week, they get recognized as people involved, people who are in touch with the programmers, and they get job offers. I get job offers, my inbox is full. Every week there's something big. And this is how Facebook contacted me. This is how Google contacted me. This is how Amazon and eBay contacted me. This is how I got to fly many times to pass job interviews on the West Coast, all expenses paid, because I decided that I would give some of my time to help other people to get organized as a community. And how can you get involved in a community? And there's not only Montreal-Python. There are many others. There's Ruby Montreal, there's PHP Quebec, there's the Geek Girls Dinner. There are many great communities here in Montreal. One way to get involved is to give a talk. So giving a talk is not that intimidating. At Montreal-Python, we have 5 minutes presentation. That's really safe to experiment with public speaking. If you're done after 2 minutes, that's okay. You don't need to be an expert to give a talk. You can just say, hey, I wrote this program, and it works, and it's fun. That's the kind of experience that people like to hear about. You can give a workshop. You can say, oh, I know programming, and I'm going to help others to learn programming. Python is great for that because it's a simple language. And you can become a sprint coordinator. A moment. So a sprint coordinator would be someone who's going to learn about an open source free software project, learn how the code is structured, what's the workflow that one should use to submit improvements to that. Do people want a merge request on GitHub? Do they want to be emailed a patch? What kind of license agreement do you need to sign when you contribute code? And then you say, yes, I'm ready, I'm able to help others to dive into this project. And then you just say, yes, I'm willing to be the coach for a sprint. And people get together and you help them to get started, to improve a piece of software, everybody working together. As I mentioned, there's not only Montreal-Python. So what are the good places to learn about other communities? There are 2 websites that I really like. One is nextmontreal.com and the other is Montreal Tech Watch. On these 2 websites, you can get a good sense of what's happening in the tech community, what are the user groups that are having events, and who are the people you should contact if you want to get involved. And that's pretty much what I have to say. That I got a lot from being involved in the tech community, and that everybody has something to gain, and that it's fun. And I hope that some of you are going to join us in this great adventure. Thank you for listening.
Speaking of, I was wondering what was the next plan to be, and you probably have a meeting, you said you had.
Yeah, so the last one was this Monday, and we don't have the date yet for the next one, but it's roughly every month, so it should be, expect something on the last or the 4th Monday of November. So we do our events on Mondays, so we don't clash with the Ruby guys who do them on Tuesdays. And that's one thing, like all the communities in Montreal, we're not in competition. We respect ourselves and we don't try to do our events the same day because it doesn't help anybody. People do cross-pollinate, they go from one group to the other, and you can attend more than one kind of event. Yes?
Yeah, so you mentioned that you got hired by Facebook.
Yeah.
So what exactly would be your job at Facebook? And I mean, what will you be developing the website? And where do you see yourself in the next probably 2 years or 3 years?
Okay, good question. So at Facebook, I'm going to be a dev op. A dev op is somebody that is halfway between a system administrator and an application developer. If you've worked in larger organizations, it's very common that the system administrators are going to be in operations, one department, and the application developers are going to be another team called the devs. And these 2 groups, they hardly talk to each other. They hardly talk to each other because they derive from different organizational structure. One is from development and research, and the other is from operations. And so they don't share the same bosses, and they don't share the same priorities, and it creates lots of conflicts, of problems, and people cannot code something and get it deployed, or the people deploying the thing end up with software that doesn't meet the expectation of the platform. So at Facebook, I'm going to be somebody who knows the platform, the kind of people who code the infrastructure, and I'm going to be sitting with application developers and say, yes, your code is good, but if you do that, we're going to be better equipped to run your program at a massive scale. In 2 years, that's hard to say. I haven't started yet, so I don't know what I'm going to feel like in 2 months, 2 years. I don't know, but I'm willing to come back and give another talk in 1 year and say how things are going.
I really like the talk. I responded first by, I saw one of the students here using WebWork. Yeah, and actually that's, the libraries are written in Perl.
Yeah.
So it's a similar sort of language. I don't know if, like you would say, Python is better than Perl?
Back when I started, I think that both of these languages were fairly equal. The interpreter, the type where you can just play with code and call your function and have fun, was a bit better in Python, but overall they were very similar. Python has types, while Perl doesn't really have type. That's a design choice. So in Python, the types are dynamic, but we do have types and they're strong. So you can really say, I want this to be an employee or a manager, and if I get something else, I'm not happy. In Perl, it's harder to do things like that. Today, I think that Python is in a better shape. Perl, in their hope of cleaning the language a lot, they designed Perl 6, and it took a lot of time to get the Perl 6 specification finished. And now they're really struggling to get it out there, implemented, and get new libraries, because most of the libraries from Perl 5 are not compatible with Perl 6. In Python, when people decided to engage in the project of doing Python 3, then they decided to cut the scope a bit to make it easier to move code from Python 2 to Python 3, because they've learned from the disaster that happened with Perl when they tried to move to Perl 6.
By the way, I love the thing with the cards.
So that's something that you learn by being involved in the user group. Like seeing many people present, because when we have an event, we have something between 4 and 7 presenters, since we have these small presentations, and then people learn from that. You don't learn only technical skills, you learn communication skills and how to make it engaging to give a presentation. Other questions?
Yes.
Thank you so much.